Good day, comrades. The Mosin Nagant, the 3-line rifle, the Moist Nugget, the Moses Baguette, the Vintovka Mosina. She goes by many names, and she is very long and smashes into wool. But truly, the Mosin Nagant was at one time one of the most popular rifles on the market. Why? She shoots cheap ammo and is very accurate for basic rifle shooter. But sadly, like with SKS, the rifle became expensive and only good for collector's market. But at one time, just about every proper shooter had one in collection. But something strange began to happen. The rifle was hated for perceived flaws and issues. So today we are going to see, is the rifle garbage rod, or is she proper rifle of great justice? Spoiler alert, it is proper rifle of great justice. This is the Vintovka Mosina, specifically a 1943 Tula-manufactured M91/30. The M91 refers to the year of adoption, 1891, and the 30 references the 1930 revision. The Mosin Nagant is a bolt-action rifle with a 90-degree bolt handle and a 5-round non-detachable box magazine that is fed by stripper clips. The Mosin is a simple rifle to learn and understand and is 100% idiot-proof. And back in 2007, when I first acquired this rifle, I was an idiot and didn't bother looking up any tutorials for the rifle. And yet, I was still able to figure it out. The rifle is very logical in its layout, and anyone with a shred of common sense can get a sense of the rifle. The M91/30 initially will come with iron sights that are functional, but I highly recommend scoping the rifle. This mount and scope came together as a complete package, and they have worked quite well over the past decade. As this mount replaces the rear sight, you have to have what is called a scout scope instead of a standard one. Scout scopes have a few advantages and disadvantages. The big advantage for me is the fact that you can keep both eyes open when looking through the aperture. The major disadvantage is the fact that they have less magnification than a standard scope. This is a 3x7 scope, but its magnification is more than adequate for 100-yard shooting. Pro tip, with this kind of scope mount, all you have to do to keep using stripper clips is just move the scope slightly forward. The stock for the rifle is quite attractive looking and has a nice retro look to it, and those full wooden handguards really do work. During the shooting session for this video, I got up out of the shooting bench and accidentally grabbed the rifle here, after shooting 20 rounds in that hot 100-degree Texas heat. Had that handguard not been there, I would likely have gotten burned quite a bit. Over time, this screw can work itself loose, so if you have one of these rifles, I would recommend putting some blue Loctite on it to ensure that this does not happen. The barrel for the rifle is rather long, coming in at 28 3/4 inches. That being said, it's not that hard to maneuver around, and I have not found myself banging it on doors and things of that nature all that much. The rifle is a bit heavy, coming in at 8 3/4 pounds. But the rifle is balanced well enough that you won't really feel it all that much. Back in 2007, after getting the SKS, I wanted to pick up, as I said back then, an old-timey bolt-action rifle. I specifically wanted a World War I era 1903 Springfield, but at the time, the South Generallotz Confederation had to lower the armament budget so that the transportation budget could be raised. Bloody fuel injection systems. So with the armament budget limited, I looked for a few alternatives. Surprisingly, I picked the Mosin Nagant not because it was super cheap, but rather because I thought it would just cost less than the 1903 Springfield and would be of high quality because it was a Russian long arm. I still remember doing a rifle search on Wikipedia of all places and coming to the conclusion to get the Mosin just from the Wikipedia article alone. What can I say? I am a strange one indeed. After a couple of weeks of saving, I went to a local gun show, and lo and behold, they had racks upon racks of Mosins.
For a short time, I was tempted to spend a little more and buy a #1 Mark III rifle. That rifle cost about $50 more than the Mosin and was in, shall we say, poor condition, whereas the Mosin you see before you looked pretty much like it does now. In the end, I picked up the Mosin for $135 USD. And looking at the tag, because yeah, I saved the tag, we can see that it was a pretty good deal all around. It was an Arsenal refurb, it was all numbers matching. At the time, I didn't really know the significance of either aspects. I just thought it was cool and nothing more. The rifle did not come with a bayonet, sadly, but at the time, and really today, I didn't care, as my SKS had a bayonet, and I wanted an old-timey bolt-action rifle, and in my mind at the time, said rifles didn't have bayonets. The rifle came with the so-called dog collar sling, and I have to say that said sling has worked quite well over the years, and is quite comfortable to use. It also came with 5 5-round stripper clips and 1 stripper clip pouch that can hold 4 stripper clips. Sadly, it wouldn't be until the modern era that I would use either the pouch or the clips. Upon taking the rifle to the range back in 2007, I was quite enamored with it, sans one aspect. I really wanted a bent bolt. Because hey, that's what the Springfield had. Over the years, I have come to terms with the 90-degree bolt handle. I added the scope the same year I bought the rifle and found that it allowed me to shoot even better. Then, from 2008 to 2014, the bloody thing sat in the safe. I just found myself not having that much time to go shoot at all, and if I got time to shoot a rifle, I just took the SKS. In 2014, I finally got to shoot it again, and with the humble garbage rod, I was able to hit a target, if not all that well, at 100 yards, thus showing that the humble garbage rod can hit something at least. The Vintovka Mosina satisfied every requirement I had back in 2007, and still satisfies them today. Back in 2007, I wanted an old-timey bolt-action rifle, and I actually wanted the rifle to have a long barrel. And at the time, I didn't even want one of those short M44 Mosin carbines, because at the time, I said they weren't old-timey enough. What can I say? I get specific in the things I want. Today in 2018, I regret not getting both the M91 30 and the M44. But alas, in 2007, petrol was of far greater concerns than another rifle. The rifle has a significant fan following to this day, but there are of course the inevitable detractors. The garbage rod is the popular term used to disparage the Mosin, and these days every single aspect of this rifle is disparaged. You would think that if the rifle was that bad that people would have just ignored it and moved on no matter how cheap it was. So now, let's go from butt to muzzle, as Small Arms Solutions would say, and see just why this rifle isn't a garbage rod. One of the first complaints about the rifle is the stock. One review stated that it was small so that underfed Russian peasants could use it. The stock itself is of solid construction and gives even long-arm shooters a good length of pull. And if you have bloody Stretch Armstrong arms, a recoil pad can always be slipped on to give it a longer length of pull. And here is the bolt, ladies and gentlemen. People love to complain about this thing, citing that it is rough and hard to actuate, and poorly made. Well, that's not really accurate. Mosins do have an issue called sticky bolt, and this can be caused by a variety of factors, including cosmoline being stuck on the chamber mouth. But after shooting this for a decade, I have determined that most bolt issues stem from ammunition. The 7.62x54 rimmed is a rimmed cartridge, and rimmed cartridge went out of style for a reason. They got that big bloody rim on them. And it seems that many 7.62x54 cartridges have malformed rims. If the rim is malformed, you will have extraction issues. Today you will see the difference between cartridges with good rims and cartridges with bad rims. People will also complain about hand loading the mag and how you can get all sorts of malfunctions. This is true to a point, but with just a little bit of practice you can avoid most issues. The next big complaint are the stripper clips. People love to compare them to Mauser clips. Not having owned a Mauser, I cannot really comment on the validity of the claim that Mauser clips are better. But what I can say is that Mosin clips work provided you use them correctly, and in the shooting segment you will see them used successfully multiple times, and they facilitate quite quick loading. The clip pouch is also quite good as well, and clips are easy to remove from it. Really, many of the complaints about the Mosin are rooted in personal preference and gun snobbery. Nothing on this rifle is broken in any way, and like with any rifle, you have to learn its quirks to shoot it successfully. Disassembly is straightforward. You hold down the trigger and remove the bolt for cleaning. Further disassembly of the bolt is quite easy as well. You simply hold down on the main bolt body and then turn the bolt slightly, and thus you can remove the bolt head and extractor. Very simple, very easy, and putting it back together is just a reverse of what you just did, and it's very logically laid out to the point where you don't have to even read a manual to figure out how it goes back together. Now, let's take a quick look at the 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed cartridge. Sadly, I do not have any unfired 7.62 by 5.4R cartridges, so you are just going to have to bear with fired cartridge cases. The 7.62 by 5.4R cartridge was developed in 1891 and is the oldest cartridge still in use today. Back in 2007, you could get spam cans of 440 rounds or more for very, very low prices. I picked up a 440 round spam can and used it from 2007 to 2017. The ammo was corrosive, and thus when cleaning the rifle, you had to make sure you used an ammonia-based cleaner to clean out the corrosive salts. The rims on those surplus cases were quite inconsistent to say the least, and thus shooting the rifle was, at times, quite a hassle. These days, surplus ammo has gone up in price, and thus it's wiser to simply use non-corrosive commercial ammo. You can get cheapo Wolf for about $10 per box, and the better stuff for around $13 to $15 per box. Today we are shooting some super cheap Wolf bimetal cased ammo that has some rather inconsistent rims, as you shall soon see. Despite this, the ammo was accurate at 50 yards, and I didn't have a single dud primer. Next, we have the good stuff. PPU match grade 180 grain boat tail. This is brass cased ammo and it's nothing short of excellent. The rims are far better and the ammo is quite accurate and consistent. And once again, no dud primers. This ammo is about $15 per box and is worth every bloody penny.
Today, we are going to be shooting 40 rounds of 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed, 20 at the 50 and 20 at the 100. We're going to be shooting 20 Wolf Cheapos at the 50 and shooting my epic ammo of great justice at the 100. And of course, all of this is going to be done from the bench. So now, let's head out to the 50 and see if the garbage rod can perform.
When I first started looking into how to fix sticky bolt, I came across some gold. 1943 and up marked Mosins are all crap and meant for only sending a bullet down range. Huh, well, I thought all guns were meant for sending bullets down range. That being said, we can see the rifle certainly is not crap, as it is indeed quite accurate. I, the shooter, was shooting high. With more practice, I will be able to get the group down. Despite shooting high, we can see that the Mosin does indeed group well. And as you could see, the Wolf Cheap had a bunch of inconsistent rims. The bad rims made for really tough extraction. The good rims did not. Also, you can see that the stripper clips work provided you know how to use them. Now, let's head to the 100-yard range and try and do even better. Garbage rod, you say? Even shooting high, I was still able to get some good hits. Far better hits than I got back in the 2014 video. And I shot even better this time than in the SKS video. While there are only 2 hits in the bullseye, that's 2 out of 20 shots instead of 5 out of 40 shots. This Mosin is quite accurate even if it's not a legendary finish Mosin. The PPU ammo had great rims and extraction was not a problem. There were a few rims that were a little crappy, but now you can see the difference between well-made ammo and cheapos. I would recommend adding a rubber butt pad to the rifle if you want to shoot for extended periods. After putting a grand total of 40 rounds down range, I had a bruise on my shoulder that would do a 12 gauge proud. That metal butt plate does not mess around. So now that we see that the humble Mosin Nagant is not a garbage rod, Where did that concept even come about? One of the things I think ended up happening to some Mosin users was they took their new used rifle out, shot at a target, and hit nothing. And instead of practicing and trying to get better, they just blamed the rifle for their bad aim. I also think that many just shot their rifle with surplus or crappy ammo and thus came to hate the Mosin bolt. Furthermore, I think people spent $60 on a rifle and expected it to function like a $600 rifle. Likely many of those super cheap Mosins were in bad mechanical condition or were mixed parts. If you got a good Mosin, as in you paid more than $80 for it, you got an excellent rifle. But you did not get a precision rifle. The Mosin Nagant M91 was never meant to be a tack driver. It was meant to be a standard issue infantry rifle, and as a standard issue infantry rifle, its accuracy is quite good and would have been able to fight the foes quite successfully. I think people who say that this rifle is inaccurate are either bad shots or they are expecting too much of a humble infantry long arm. I think the rifle was also looked upon like the Yugo car of old. Back in the 1980s, a car called the Yugo was imported into the US for very cheap prices, and since they were so cheap, people thought that they were disposable, and thus they never changed the oil and never even used the most basic of preventative maintenance, and thus the Yugos started falling apart. And instead of realizing that machines required maintenance, people blamed the car and called it crappy. I believe that some people bought this rifle thinking it was disposable, and thus they never cleaned it after shooting corrosive ammo, and then they said it was crappy when the barrel rusted and they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with the door closed. The Mosin, like any other firearm, needs to be cleaned and cared for to get the best performance possible out of it. The Mosin can be upgraded to be a precision rifle, and the fact that it can be at all is quite significant in and of itself. But out of the box, the Mosin is nothing short of excellent. It does and did everything that was asked of it and more. So, is the Mosin relevant in 2018? Sadly, like with the SKS, it depends. If you already have one, be happy that you have one and go out and shoot the bloody thing. If you can get a good one for cheap somehow, pick it up and have fun with it. The price online has risen to over $400 USD, just like with the SKS, and thus we need to compare the Mosin to other rifles in this price bracket. You can get much better rifles in this price range that will give you much better accuracy owing to many decades of firearms development. So if you want a cheap but good bolt action, I would recommend the following: the Thompson Center Compass, Ruger American, Savage Axis, and last but not least, the Mossberg Patriot. While none of these rifles have the sheer history of the Mosin Nagant, they do have great accuracy and are chambered in modern calibers such as 6.5 Creedmoor. These rifles also come drilled and tapped for full power scopes, and Thompson Center Compass rifles even have a threaded barrel. Each of these rifles cost more or less the same as one another at around $350 USD, and any of these rifles would make for a great first centerfire bolt action rifle. The Mosin was, and still is, a great military surplus bolt action, and was for many years my only bolt action, and was so good that the only reason I picked up the No. 4 Mark I Lee Enfield was due to the fact that I wanted that specific rifle, and not because I wanted something better.
And so I am Comrade Generallotz, and I will issue good Mossberg Patriot and good Thompson Center Compass, or whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed my review of the Mosin Nagant M91, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you these awesome gun reviews.
God damn, that's hot.